Bozeman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. You've come across again the least SEO podcast on the planet. I don't do interviews because, well, there's already some great ones out there. And I don't teach SEO directly, but I understand that some of it naturally does come through. Mainly, though, I talk about SEO from being a human being. Welcome to Confessions of an SEO 2024 Mountain Edition. I am coming to you today from the Green Mountains of Vermont on this 7th episode of 2024 in the summer. Now, this week I ran a little behind on getting this episode out, but since I'm the only one here who has the right to complain, I'm just going to say I'm okay with it. So last week's show was basically me asking if I'm a terrible person because I get so thrilled with SEO problems when they clearly are not good things for other people's businesses. I came across a Simpson meme showing someone slipping on a banana peel, and I found myself, I couldn't help myself. I laughed, which reminds me of when my mom told me that I had my grandmother's sense of humor. She laughed in the movies over anything that was remotely slapstick, which is obviously nothing but comedy based on clumsiness. So there, Schadenfreude SEO. If you missed last week's episode, the link is in the description. Now, today's topic was a late delivery. I'm still a little tired from traveling, and yesterday was all about getting the internet set up. And part of that involved realizing that one of us left the Apple TV remote somewhere between here and North Carolina. So what I wanted to touch on, and what I'm going to talk about may make this shortly one of the most SEO podcasts today. All right. Remember when I talked about HouseFresh? Now, these guys had a site and they did reviews on air purifiers, and they decided to very loudly squeak with the idea that Google was being unfair to them. Search terms that used to bring in thousands of visitors a month no longer worked, and they were saying that the brands, these big brands, outrank them as disingenuous because those big brands weren't testing like they were. Now, I'm using their name because they made themselves the story. So I'm not outing them in any way other than they've already outed themselves. I participated in a video series with Maria Seos to answer some questions and look under a lot of rocks to see what lurked underneath. Like, were they correct in their assessment? Does Google have it out for independent publishers? And were they simply replaced? Was there no other contributing factors? Now, recently, Google apparently invited HouseFresh and some other independent publishers, and they didn't really publicize they were going to do this. It was kind of like after the fact. And this showed up in a search engine roundtable article. I'll put the link in there. And I forget about which one of the Confessions episodes I talked about how I really thought Danny Sullivan was very nice. He couched everything they said as feedback and made a serious attempt to explain how search works. Instead of working to really understand the problem with their topical strategy, HouseFresh doubled down and, to quote, from On the Riverfront, became a cheese eater and attempted to rat out their competitors that were outranking them, and complete with, Google's best practices list and circling the offenses. Now, at the end of the day, and Google told them this, Google cares about the searchers, not content creators. Not to mention, they can't tweak an algorithm to favor a specific site, no matter how much that site complains to them that as publishers, it just wasn't fair, right? Their strategy used to work, but now it doesn't, and it's Google's fault, so Google has to change. Now, who really thinks someone at Google knows exactly how to rank in a competitive market? I'm asking. And another question I have is, has anyone been able to rank number one based on Google's advice? publish high quality content, and people will naturally link to you. Now, I confess, I still am astonished at how little attention was paid to that site in question. Now, the video series aside, where we really broke it down for them, nobody really talked about, their strategy. And it's a strategy that doesn't work anymore. Surprise, surprise, right? Do I really need to put that into words? I hate being the bearer of bad news. If you have a collection of articles that basically as a group answer one query, now let me repeat that. There are multiple articles that answer the same query, even if they aren't replicated word for word, even if they target different keyword phrases, they are targeting the same query. And I ask you, one key thing, ... Maybe they should direct some of this desire for, and look at what they're doing. Now, isn't that true for all of us at some point, right? We have to be humbled enough to realize that we were so certain of, and look at it. Google's results have been the biggest teacher to me more than anything else, more than anybody else. And I say that as a tester, but it's also true in real life SEO campaigns. If you're doing SEO and thinking keyword targeting, I bet I can tell you what your site performance looks like. If you think your problem is that you don't have enough EAT, EEAT, I bet I can tell you what your site performance looks like. If you think your problem is not enough backlinks, I bet I can tell you what your performance looks like. If you don't know what I mean by that, I really want to encourage anyone listening who is like, oh my God, is she looking over my shoulder? Is she seeing my Search Console data? I really want to encourage you as a professional. Get curious. What could I possibly mean when I say that? Look at the House Fresh video series, because if you look at that and you keep an open mind, it's as clear as day. Now, I've had the pleasure of being called into consulting. And in the old days, I would even go so far as to hire myself out as a team adjunct at different agencies. So this week, I'm thinking of forensic SEO you do when you've done everything you can think of and nothing else. In some ways, it's kind of like the oncology department of SEO. Sometimes also of a business, right, that's waited too long to question how they're doing things. If any of this sounds familiar to you and you don't want the world to know, I get it, right? You can reach out. I don't bite much. I sign non-disclosure agreements all the time. I even have a very nondescript Gmail that you could likely slip into Search Console and go unnoticed. And even if you had to say who it was, because the client is super frustrated with you, just say it's a suppression specialist. I like that word. In fact, you should have them pay for the extra services, which are obviously project-based, not a forever thing. And some people have told me that they use what they learned on that problem site to apply to their other client sites and have had success. So it's a win-win. Anyway, that's it. If you want to reach out, email confessions@americanwaymedia.com or text 512-222-3132. That's it for this week. To stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing, because it is very interesting, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. And if you think that you've got a helpful content issue, I do have a special little program that is not as expensive, but I can definitely verify whether or not you've been hit. I'll review the data and then prepare a video for you to go along with my notes. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a listener. If you have any questions or topic ideas, I really want to hear from you. Again, that same number, you can text 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the serps.